Hello everyone, how are you doing? In today's class, we'll be talking about the ancient economic thought, and we focusing on the contributions of Plato and Aristotle. So, in the subsequent, there will be another class after this where we'll be looking at two other people, Thomas Aquinas and Ibn Khaldun or Ibn Khaldun. What's our lesson outcomes? Introduction to ancient economic thought. That means what we're trying to cover in this class and what you ought to understand by the time you're done. Introduction to ancient economic thoughts, features of the ancient economy, Plato and his principles, Aristotle and his principles. Alright, so ancient economic thought, what can we say about this? This refers to the ideas. Now you have to be careful. It refers to the ideas, ancient economic ancient economic ideas. So it refers to the ideas of economic thinkers before the Middle Ages. So the Middle Age happens to be a period in human history. Alright, so before the Middle Ages in ancient civilizations such as Greece, Rome, India, Egypt, China, etc. Alright, now in this 21st century, you have the superpowers as the US. All right, US. So if you are looking at very strong countries, you are talking about the US, you are talking about Russia, and so on and so forth. But there was a time when Asian civilization was centered around Greece, centered around Rome, India, Egypt. If you're a Christian, if you happen to be a Christian or maybe a Muslim or something like that, then some of these countries will come up in your religious books, right? I don't think you have people talking from the United States of America like that, but you have things like the Egyptian pharaohs talking about the Roman empires and so on and so forth. So some of the thinkers of the time were Plato, Aristotle, Xenophon, Khaldun, Thomas Aquinas, Chanakya from Kotila, Lao Tzu, okay, let's say I think Lao Tzu from China, you have Seneca, you have Epictetus, etc. So it's not as if we're going to be talking about all of these people today. So we would only be focusing our discussions on the contributions of Plato, Aristotle, Khaldun, and Thomas Aquinas. All right. Depending on your lecturer in whatever school that you are um, having this course. So there are other people that may be spoken about in this particular period of time. So, but for me, I've already mentioned those people that I want to talk about. So, but I think it doesn't matter, independent of the subjective preference of your lecturer or your curriculum. I think you would always have to talk about Plato and Aristotle at least. Okay, as far as ancient economic thought is concerned. All right, the Middle Age is known. Now we're talking about the Middle Age. The Middle Age is also known as a medieval period that spanned from the 5th to the 15th century. So it began with the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 CE and ended with the beginning of the Renaissance in the 14th century. Okay, so I just think you might want to take note of this date. So Renaissance is also another important period in the history of man. So you might just browse, about it. What was the Renaissance about, and so the circumstances around it, and that and that. So what are the features of the ancient economy? So you have agrarianism and craftsmanship. Alright, that is most people around this period were involved in agriculture or crafts, these arts and crafts, or what do you call them? Alright, so most engage in subsistence farming, and where agricultural surplus existed, they were traded. Alright, and non-farmers were engaged in craftsmanship. So you are either a craftsman or most likely a farmer, a subsistence farmer. All right, next is barter trading and limited currency use. So people exchange goods for goods, right? So barter trading, obviously you know what barter trading is, and then the corresponding problem of the barter system, which is talking about double coincidence of wants. So, and it happens in two phases. So I have something, so I have a computer, and then I am in the need for an history of economic thought class. So I need to find someone that can teach me history of economic thought. So there are two problems. So it's either I find somebody that can really teach me history of economic thought class, but is not interested in the laptop that I am willing to give up to have the class. Okay, the person can teach me, but the person has maybe the person has his or her own laptop. So like, it's not just interested. So trade is not going to happen. All right, and the second way around is the person might have a laptop the person may not have a laptop, may be in need of a laptop, I mean the other person, but he or she may not be able to teach Mystery of Economic Thought class. So an exchange is not going to happen in that sense, right? So you need what I want, you need what I'm offering, but you don't have what I need. So a trade is not going to happen. So double coincidence of wants. All right. Then another thing that characterized this period was slavery. All right, slavery was important. Like slavery was a significant part of this period. Slaves were acquired and used for farm labor and domestic work. I think that's very straightforward. Now you have centralized authority. So talking about the political system that was existing in that period. So it was more of monarchy, and monarchy existed in different forms. So states were ruled by kings, by emperors, by pharaohs, okay, who were very powerful. So they and their officials set prices, controlled trade, and implemented policies to manage resources. Not that this is the only thing that they did, but because we are talking about history of economic thought, so we are more or less focusing on economic things that they did. Of course, you have kings and emperors defending the states. All right, I think that's one of their most important duties, defending the state. But so we're just looking at the economic duties, setting of prices. Not that the king essentially sets prices, but he's gonna have officials around. So something like an economic team, okay, that would be influencing prices or setting prices, controlling trade, implementing policies and so on. At least I think you have something like that in the sometime in Egypt, okay, where you go through the story of the Pharaoh and Joseph. So during the period of famine, all right, or famine, okay. So Joseph was the one in charge of this economic, in charge of food, getting our food from people, storing of food and then disbursing the food, storing of food during the surplus era and then disbursing the food, during the famine, season. Okay, or farming during farming. So let me just say during farming. So it wasn't essentially the king that was doing all of that. Okay, but then it also has to be with the backing of the king. So I hope you understand that. So there is a postscript. These features varied across different places and periods of ancient civilization, geography, culture, and societal structures of the people. Okay, so they vary, right? So that means it's not like you're going to have these four things or more. I've only mentioned four. That's if you're going to have these four things everywhere, at the same time, during that period, or it's not as if we are going to have these things, these features in the same, no, to the same degree, okay, in all of these civilizations. So it may not be. So one might be more pronounced than the others. All right. So now we are on Plateau. So who is Plateau? Plateau lived, between 424 BC to 347 BC, or 423 BC to 348 BC. Alright, he was a Greek philosopher that was born in Athens in ancient Greece. So we have a picture of an image of Plato here. Alright. So what were some of Plato's principles? So we're talking about wealth and poverty. Wealth and poverty. Of course, we know what wealth means. We are talking about accumulated material possessions, and then poverty, we are talking about deprivation of basic human needs. So Plato is somebody, or was somebody, that had an ethical view of life. So he didn't want wealth, he didn't want people to be excessively wealthy, or he didn't want people to pursue excess wealth, and also he didn't want the presence of poor people in his ideal state. So I think something like an ideal country. So he had a perspective of what an ideal state should be. When I say states, I'm talking about something like a country. All right, like Rome, for example. So how should Rome be in an ideal manner? How should Greece be in an ideal manner? So, and he wrote a number of books, but we are not going into all of those things today. So let's just start reading. Plato had an ethical view of life. He identified three important human needs in the following order. So you have to be you have to pay attention to this in the following order: the mind, the body, and estate. So according to Plato, the needs of the mind come first, followed by the needs of the body, and then followed by the needs of the estate. So what is the need of the mind? Knowledge. So you develop the mind through the acquisition of knowledge, according to him, and then you develop the body by taking care of it in terms of food, clothing, shelter. Okay, so the least thing that should be your concern, according to Plato, is estate, right? And this balance must not be disrupted, must not be disturbed. So you have mind, the body, and the material possessions. Okay, so to him, satisfying the needs of the human mind, fueled by knowledge, is most important, followed by bodily needs, food, clothing, and shelter, and then estate. So he basically placed the least emphasis on material wealth accumulation. So according to him, the needs of the soul and body are necessities. Material wealth happen to be, luxury. I hope you're having a good time. Okay. All right. Second paragraph now. Oh wait, before I even get to that, you might have to read more on what Plato said about wealth and poverty or human needs. I think was it human needs or something? Was that the way it was put? And then you might see something, you might come across something like soul, and then he broke the soul into different dimensions, talking about the intellect, the seats of emotion, and this and that, a lot of things. Okay, but this is history of economic thought. We are not doing psychology, right? So we are not really delving deep into all of those things. But no, you might be a psychologist today, minoring in economics, taking this course. I just read more about what is said about the soul and body, and so it's okay. I think human nature. It was under human nature. Okay, what did Plato say about human nature? Alright, so let's move on to the second paragraph. I hope I'm not too fast for you. He argued that the pursuit of wealth for its own sake could cause corruption, greed, and social unrest. Okay, so not that he didn't want you to be wealthy if you can be wealthy, but he doesn't want you to pursue wealth as the major thing. He doesn't want you to pursue wealth as a principal thing. Okay, and why is that? Because it can lead to corruption. So when you see people, doing things for the sake of material, for the sake of the acquisition of material possessions, they might start to engage in underhand practices, and we see all of those things around today because people want to be wealthy, so they go into bribery and corruption. They go to do dangerous things, criminal things, just to have money, just to command influence in the society. So it's and so on and so forth. So pursuing wealth too could also lead to greed. So not that I'm not good enough, not that I'm not okay, but I don't want you to have more than I do. So to Plato, that was not necessary. Remember that it was coming from the ethical point of view. That was not necessary, being greedy, trying to want more, than what the other person has, to the detriment of the society, to the detriment of the person. And then talk about social unrest. Okay, so here I think let's try to synthesize this point. So it was like capitalism was not existing in his era, so even the concept was not existing. That came several hundreds of years later. Okay, but it was kind of trying to say something that in your pursuit of wealth, it might be at the detriment of some people, and at some point, there might be social unrest. When people feel cheated so much, and they might just be pushed to the wall, and they might revolt. They might just revolt. You are cheating us, you're not giving us our rights, and yeah, what I have, you are taking it away from me just because you want to add to your own. So there might be things like that. So he didn't want these things, right? So that's why I was trying to I was telling people, okay, you should use temperament in the pursuit of wealth. So thus he emphasized the pursuit of virtue and the pursuit of common good over materialism. So a question could come for you to cross-reference or discuss materialism. I say materialism. Discuss capitalism and some of what Plato said, in the ancient school of thought. So you should be able to discuss, you understand? That's the essence of knowledge, right? And that's the essence of education. You've been taught something, but you should be able to synthesize, look into this part, look into the other part, bring things together. All right. So I think there's an approach to that in HET that we did last in the last class. Talking about concepts, using concept approach, bringing things together. All right. So why capitalism favored materialism? You understand? So he is saying that we should pursue virtue. All right. In the same vein, extreme poverty should not exist, for both excess poverty and wealth are productive of great evil, because both have a bad effect on the quality of work and workman himself. So why he didn't want people to pursue wealth? Okay, for the sake of wealth, remember the second paragraph, he argued that the pursuit of wealth for its own sake, right? Why didn't want people to pursue wealth for the sake of wealth? All right, he also didn't want people to be poor, okay, in the society. I already gave a reason why they didn't want people to pursue excessive wealth. Now the other reason now is that if you pursue excessive wealth, you might you likely you end up being lazy, okay, and being idle. All right, because you have everything that you want, so you may not contribute productively to the state anymore. So you just end up being idle, you know, being lazy, just and then you begin to pursue novelty. So now you are too comfortable. So instead of you to be pursuing that which is productive, you begin to look for things that are unnecessary. And as a poor person, so why he was against poverty as a poor person, he didn't want, he doesn't want people to be poor, right? Because it affects their quality of work. So when you are poor, so you are not likely going to do your work the way you are supposed to do it. So it affects your quality of work, and then it affects the state, people that you are being responsible for. All right, people that you are being responsible for, you are not able to deliver as you are supposed to deliver. Time is really running against me. Okay, all right. So that's that about said about birth and poverty. So how about division of labor? So Plato's main contribution was in his account of division of labor. So the way he saw division of labor was not the same way Adam Smith saw his own. All right. So Plato saw a society. All right, like a society divided into different professions. And why? That's because people cannot, nobody's self-sufficient. Do you understand? You can be a farmer, so but somebody else has to make your shoes, somebody else has to make your clothes, and so on and so forth, right? Somebody has to make your house, the house that you're going to live in. So his own division of labor was in terms of, let me read what is here. Division of labor. Plato's main contribution was in his account of division of labor. By division of labor, it simply meant the division of employment, like professions, as an aid to social organization. So, as an aid to social how the society is being organized at the end of the day. All right. So, it based the origin of state on division of labor. So, according to Plato, the essential needs of mankind are food, clothing, and shelter. And that's mind. This is talking about the body. All right, the bodily needs. So, mind, body, and estate. So, to him, food, clothing, and shelter. I think I should have added knowledge, food, clothing, and shelter. All right, and of course, so a city-state. Coming back to the second paragraph now, a city-state must include a builder, a weaver, a farmer, and a shoemaker, or a representative of some other similar occupation. So every individual should do the work that is suitable for him. So here is kind of talking about specializing. Okay? Do what you are fit to do. As a consequence, all commodities are produced more plentifully, easily, and of a better quality. So when a builder is not being a farmer, right? So you are able to specialize in what you know how to do best, and the quality that you're going to produce is going to be of superior. Is going to be superior than when a farmer decides to do what you are doing. Do you understand? So that's just what he's trying to say. So his own division of labor was in terms of social organization. He was not talking about a single a single profession being broken into different productive parts, like Adam Smith. Adam Smith to say maybe as a teacher, someone else should take care of the research that comes into teaching. All right, someone else should maybe prepare let's say notes. So someone else should deliver the lecture, and as they're delivering the lecture, maybe there should be another teacher that is going through the classroom to ensure that the students are doing what they're supposed to do and then they are concentrating. There should be a supervisor. All of those things, still talking about the same profession. But according to Plato, that was not what he was talking about. So I'm taking my time to explain this because you might just be required to cross-reference, alright, to differentiate between what Adam Smith said about division of labor, or what the classical school of economics said about division of labor, and what the ancient school of thought said about division of labor. Alright, the third paragraph. Division of labor into various trades was thus recognized as a necessary condition to economic welfare, even though division of each trade into various tasks was not considered by him. I've explained that. Moreover, he did not consider the necessity of a wider market for the applications of his principles. So thus, Plato's idea of division of labor is different from that of Adam Smith's. Smith's division of labor is determined by the market, but Plato's division of labor determines the market. Okay, so take note of that as well. Secondly, to Adam Smith, the advantages of division of labor go only to the employers, but to Plato, it is beneficial to the entire society. And why? Because no one is self-sufficient. So that's why he is saying that you should divide. It's just for the prosperity of the state. So that was what his own division of labor was concerned with. But to Adam Smith, it was not really prosperity of the state. So it was more or less going to the wealth created through the division of labor, going to the capitalist. So just take care of these things. There are some things I will explain that I won't dive this deep, but I'll explain some other things that I think you need to really understand in case you are asked to discuss or critique or whatever. Do you understand? And then because I understand the way HET is in several schools, you understand, it's difficult, it's voluminous, so I've taken my time to make my presentation in a way that you are I give notes. So these are notes, all right, so not just bullet points. So in case you want to develop your notes, so these are notes. I give you notes that you can study, go over, that in an easy way, and so on and so forth. All right, so he also talked about political and economic system. So for Plato, still talking about what an ideal state should be. So he divided the society into three classes. So the first class is the ruling class, and the ruling class contains the philosopher kings and the guardians. The ruling class contains the philosopher kings and the guardians. So these are people that rule, everything that involves governance. These are people that do those things. So you have the philosopher king, who is the first citizen of the state, and is supreme, all right, and is very powerful. So he has the guardians around him, you understand, to effectively rule the state. And the philosopher kings and the guardians, one thing you should note about them is they are separated from childhood, and then from there they are being taught how to rule. It seems they kind of identify leadership skills in them or whatever, or maybe because they come from royal blood, the royal lineage. So they have been separated from childhood, and they are given a different education from the education of the common man. So yeah, they are being educated to rule. So because they are taught to be wise, right, and then you teach them, and so on and so forth. So that's that about the philosopher kings. And I think there's something about the guardians elsewhere as well. The guardians are not deemed to have property, so you don't have property as a guardian, all right. So what you just have to pursue is wisdom to effectively rule the state. You don't have a proper, you don't have, you're not meant to have properties. Okay, so you should be concerned. You should have 100% concentration on the ruling of the state. So the philosopher kings and the guardians, that is the ruling class, who go through an extensive system of education to be wise and rule wisely. Then after that class, you have the auxiliaries. So the auxiliaries, the philosopher kings and the guardians, they are they are at the top, okay, of the structure of the society, political structure of the society, and then they have the most power. Like the power comes from them. They are very powerful. So the next in line happen to be the auxiliaries, and these are warriors and defenders of the state. And from there you have the producers. Producers include all the productive aspects of the society, all the people that are engaged in one form of economic activity or the other. So artisans and farmers, people that are engaged in production. Okay. So you have the craftsmen, the artisans, and then you have the farmers. And this happen to be, they don't have political power. They don't have the same education as that of the philosopher kings and guardians. And by extension, they are not deemed as wise as the philosopher kings and the guardians. And they are the largest, okay, they are the largest class in the society. The artisans and the farmers, they are the largest, okay. And the philosopher kings were supreme and were to assign roles to people based on their abilities. So philosopher kings govern the state, then warriors protect it, and the economic activities are carried out by the producer class. So the artisans and the farmers. Alright, the guardians cannot own personal property and cannot have families. Eunuchs, right? So the idea is that only the desire to serve the common good motivates them rather than money or power. So he hopes that the guardians, Plato now, he hopes that the guardians will love wisdom and that they will not misuse their power. The producers are the most populated class in the state. I've mentioned that. So private property. So what did Plato say about private? So for somebody that doesn't really want to pursue wealth, so of course is against private property. So he was very skeptical about private property, arguing for communism, where property is commonly shared. So communism is a system of government where property is, commonly shared. Like nobody owns anything and everybody owns everything. You understand? So he argued that rulers should focus on governing and protecting the state instead of selfishly using their powers in the acquisition of private property. So, and why? Because he doesn't want it to be greedy, he doesn't want it to be idle, okay, he doesn't want it to be corrupt, he doesn't want social unrest. So it was just against private property. So I think you understand what private property means. So you having something you call your own. So he doesn't really want that. So it is when you have something you call your own that you may decide to, you know, you want to own more than other people. So it was really against private property. All right, then he also spoke about money. So Plato recognized the value of money as a medium of exchange. So to him, everything about money should not be more than being serving as a medium of exchange. So he did not favor the idea of allowing gold and silver to be used by the common man. So even by talking about money, you understand? So he doesn't want, so gold and silver should be used by, of course, the ruling class. Okay, the special people. Instead, he suggested the use of domestic coins for payments of wages and other transactions. So he wanted the state to have a common Hellenic currency for the use of ambassadors, travelers, visitors, etc. So it's looking like this guy. What can I say about this guy? Can I say it's condescending? I don't know. Sorry, but it's more of a classy guy. So it's kind of classy, you know. I don't know. So interest, that should be number 6. I don't know. Why did I put number 6? Plato prohibited interest taking. That's usury. Usury is actually excess interest, too much interest. So Plato didn't want people to be taking interest for loans as he considered it an unjust practice. Okay, however, later on he permitted interest taking as a penalty for delayed payment. So why did he consider it as an unjust practice? Okay, to him, I was talking about money. That money should just serve as a medium of exchange. So, which was when we start talking about the next person, Aristotle. We can't be in this class again. Time is already going. It's almost 30 minutes. Okay. He was saying that if somebody is in need and then you have money that you are not using, right? So give the person the money that he or she needs. And by the time the person wants to return the money, the person should return the exact amount that you lent out. You understand? So that is just what should happen. But why should you, who has money that you are not using, lend it out to somebody that is seriously in need of it, and by the time the person is meant to repay, the person then pays you more? So that means money, right, is not only being used as a medium of exchange there. Money is being used to get reward that it did not work for. So money is getting, so it's more or less like you are cheating the borrower. So you are using money to get wealth, you understand, for value not created. So the money was not put into a productive use. Like you lent out the money. It wasn't as if you put the money into a productive use, something that maybe like an agriculture or something that generates return. So no. So you barely just gave out what you were not using or what someone really needed, and out of your discretion you decided to give the person. And by the time the person is returning it, instead of you to collect the exact amount, you are now asking the person to pay more. You understand? So you lent me 5,000 naira, you asked me to pay 7,000 naira. So what work has the money you gave me, what work has it done that will ask me to pay you 7,000 naira? So you are being unfair to me and you are being unjust. So the amount of money that you give out is the same thing that you should get in return, because money has not done any work. The money that you lent out to me has not done any work. If you want a reward for your money, go and put your money into work, go and put your money into a business, and whatever return it gets, it's fine. Do you understand? So lending out money to people and you getting interest and this one, so he prohibited it. So he didn't want it, so it was unfair to him. And it was something that was characteristic of this particular of ancient economic thoughts. So they were really not for usury. And so I think for them it's probably got to a point where people are now charging, people turned it into a business, right? And they were now charging excessive interest. So like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Someone is needy and you lend money to the person and then you're asking the person to give you more. So you're not humane. Okay, you're not being compassionate. You're not being compassionate. So money should just serve as a medium of exchange. Basic. So you shouldn't be generating wealth from just lending out money to somebody. Alright, so that was what he said. Okay, and then, well, later on he permitted money, so I guess here people started defaulting or people were not paying when they said they were going to pay. And money has an opportunity cost. You understand? So I could have used my money for something else than lending it out to you. So I guess later on you realize that, and okay. Well, you can take interest as a penalty for the late payment. At least people respond to incentives, so people would begin, or people would likely begin to pay faster. You know, when they know that a penalty is attached to not paying. So that is that about that. So we'll talk about Aristotle in the next class. So thank you very much. And you have an assignment, so we'll get to the assignment in the next class as well. All right, thank you. See you there. Bye.